Welcome back to Friends Like Us. Marina Franklin here, your host. This week on Friends, we're getting back to some kind of normal with work. Are you happy where you work? We talk about it with women of color who are entrepreneurs. Welcome back, Africa Miranda, powerhouse beauty entrepreneur, actress, and model who has solidified her spot as one of the most on-demand influencers in the beauty and digital media industries. She's the breakout star on Bravo TV's reality series, The New Atlanta. She is the host on the popular lifestyle talk show on Facebook Watch, The Africa Miranda Show. And with more than 10 years in the game, all of her successes had come with their own challenges, which she shares in her book, Step Up, Step Out, and Shine. Also, welcome back, Salone Monet. Salone is the founder and creative director of her color-inclusive nude shoe brand. Salone, realizing the need for color equity in footwear space, decided to nurture her passion for footwear through shoemaking classes in Brooklyn, where she made her first pair of nude heels from scratch. The color-inclusive line has adorned the feet of Beyoncé, Gabrielle Union, Keke Palmer, and a host of other influential women, and hear more about her new launch for leisure wear on the show. And welcome back, Anna Gilchrist. Anna received her MFA in Childhood Studies at Swansea University, where she learned about global advocacy for children's rights and the human rights treaty known as the United Nations Conventions on the Rights of the Child. It was during her studies that she decided to raise awareness about children's rights, choosing to write and illustrate a children's book about a girl who, along with her cat, fights for the rights for children to play. The Extraordinary Day of Daffodil Gray, published in 2017, received rave reviews and helped launch the Daffy and Friends book series. It's a great group. Can't wait for you to listen and be inspired. I want to thank all of our listeners of Friends Like Us. Because of you, we make some pretty impressive lists. You can hear us on Google Podcasts now, Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Apple Podcasts. Review and rate us on Apple Podcasts. Subscribe and make sure you turn on the auto download function on the Friends Like Us Apple Podcast. You can email us at friendslikeUspodcast@gmail.com. Instagram is Friends Like Us Podcast, and Twitter is Friends Like Us 10. Become more than a friend. Leave us a tip or a donation by going to our Patreon page. Go to Patreon.com/Friends Like Us. A special shout out to our Patreon friends. It's because of you we keep going. Merch is available. We have t-shirts, hoodies, coffee mugs, face masks, and tank tops. Go to marinafranklin.com. And weekly on my YouTube channel, I go live with my assistant Evelyn Frick and my wacky friend Dave Juskow to give updates to the show. We shout out fans who leave those reviews. And we have guest friends on the show, like we've had Zainab Johnson, Yamanika Saunders, Pat Browning. You never know who's going to stop by. Oh, and sometimes we even offer free stuff like tickets to comedy shows. And with Friends Like Us, it'll help you feel not so alone because more content is on the way. Most important, tell a friend you know to check us out. Wash those dirty little hands. Wear a mask still if you want to. Get vaccinated. And Black Lives Matter. Today, I have a lovely group. I say this to every group that you're my favorite group, but you really are my favorite group. You're just like, you're like nice women. And I just need that so bad right now. I need like nice, kind, patient, and helpful women.
And helpful.
You know, I haven't heard from you guys in a while. I always I'm like, I don't want to bother them. They're doing so much. But, you know, like I saw Anna on Instagram, and she's been on the podcast before because she writes books, children books. And I had her on. It's been a while. It's pre-pandemic. But it's nice to have you back because I see how you have a new book out. So we'll get to that later, but I'm so excited for you.
Thank you.
So thanks for coming back.
Glad to be here again.
And Salone Monet, who I always stalk her on Instagram because one, she has just the cutest little, your son is just adorable. I saw that picture of you in Harlem at the restaurant that I actually am not complaining about. So I love the picture. And I was like, I'm going to reach out to her. I don't care if she's busy,
Anytime. You can reach out anytime. I think it's been over a year since you've last had me on. So
Yes. It was during the pandemic. You guys were so nice to both come on. Africa Miranda, who I love having you both together because you're good friends and it works. And then I've been following Africa since she moved to Atlanta.
I moved.
And now she has a new baby pet.
You better follow up that baby very quickly. There was a pause.
Clarification. My four-legged obsession. Yes, I've joined the Pandemic Dog Owners Association, and I feel like I'm the president.
But I'll start with I'll start with you, Anna, since it's been the longest on your book. Tell us about your book and just tell us a little bit about yourself again, because I could do it, I could read it, but I'm horrible at reading, which is good for you because this is why you do this, to help literacy.
Yes. That's essentially what I do. So it's Daffodil Gray and the Colorful Parade. It's the second book of a series called the Daffy and Friends series, which focuses on children's rights, as stated in the UN Convention of the Rights of the Child, also known as the UNCRC. So with this book, it's about Daffodil Gray, who is a girl of color, a Black girl, who runs into a parade and makes all these friends and celebrating diversity. Yet she confronts these two twin boys who are not so fond of diversity. And so she has to find a way to show them that diversity is not only, fun, it's something that can be celebrated and should be encouraged. So that's essentially my second book. And it's been out since the beginning of the pandemic, to be honest. That's when I officially published it. I had a funding campaign that I did with iFund Women to help get the book out and get it printed and out there. And I got such a great response and feedback from so many people, which was so amazing to receive, because you just don't know when, as we all here, we're all artists. You just put something out there. You're just like, okay, what's going to happen? Are people going to like this? Is it going to be received well? And fortunately it was. I ended up getting a business grant from American Express as a result. And so I've been working on a third book, which I'm not going to talk about yet because it's still in the works, but I'm super excited. It's not going to be part of this series. It's actually going to be a nonfiction book about girls in modern day that have been change makers and have demonstrated leadership and heroism in our modern day world. So I'll just leave it at that, but I'm super excited. I'm working with an amazing illustrator, and so that's what I'm doing right now.
It's so perfect.
So cool.
It is so cool. And Salone could use, she's, could read to the little one.
Yeah. Right? I'm definitely going to log on and purchase your books. We're always looking for new books for Henry. We're readers, or at least he is. We read to him.
That makes you a reader too.
Yes, absolutely.
You become a reader once you have kids.
Very
it's true. Yeah.
And it's so timely too, with all the arguments and debates about critical race theory.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is that what inspired it, or?
No, because I wrote the book about a year before. And illustrated. I wrote and illustrated the book. So I did it way before the whole George Floyd incident. It just happened to be good timing. I hate to say good timing. I think that's a bad choice of words, but you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It was just the timing was there. And, that kind of made people start to recognize it more, because it's like, this is something we need to talk about. Why are children not having discussions about differences, and why, being different is considered something you don't talk about? Why are we talking about race? Why are we talking about color? It's like, why not? It's a part of many people's existence. It's the majority of people in the world that have this experience. So why are we not having this discussion, and why can't kids talk about it? And then the approaches that I've seen from other authors where they're just like, let's talk about race. And I'm like, okay, so when we're talking to kids, right? We can't go into the whole depth of the social construction of race and breaking it down that way. That's something they learn as they get older. But in the meantime, children understand what makes us different, right? They understand, oh, my skin color is darker than yours. My hair is more curly than yours. They understand those, tactical differences that they can, see and feel and touch. So those are the things we can address and say, okay, and speaking different languages, wearing different clothes, those are things we can address and say, hey, it's okay if they are different in these ways. And I feel like that's something that is kind of getting lost right now, because I feel like, not to put any authors out there that, because they're doing their thing, but I feel like some people might be missing the mark in regards to how to explain diversity to children. And that's just my opinion. I kind of digress there, but
totally. I couldn't agree with you more. It's a conversation that we're cognizant about keeping, kind of at top of frame in our home. But at the same time, we get a lot of books that are based on like the struggle and all my life I had to fight. And I'm like, this is not age appropriate for Henry. Like, I don't see Jewish families like day one talking about like X amount of people died on this day. Like, there's culture that doesn't have to be surrounded about death. There's culture that doesn't necessarily have to be about like the social contracts and redlining. And you would be surprised how many children's books are about these very, what I would consider age inappropriate topics that are a part of American history, that are a part of Black history. But this should not be any child's introduction to Black history. This shouldn't be any child's introduction into like learning about Black authors. And I actually earlier this year was Henry's Coast to a Preschool. It was his first time, because we were doing everything from home, and like he happened to be home during Zoom school, and they were doing a Black History Month. His English teacher was doing a Black History Month Black History Month class about talking about, Dr. Martin Luther King. And some of the things, like Roy and I were sitting around the table and we're like, I don't think that this is how we would be describing this to him. Yeah. I don't think that we would be, I don't think that this is age. I mean, he, at this time, he was 4. And I'm like, I don't think that we need to be like, yes, we need to talk about differences in skin tone. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. But why are we saying that Black people couldn't sit at the front of the bus because they're Black, and then leaving that at the end of the discussion and not talking about, if they can't understand like the social reasons for that and the greater delusion of white folks at that time, and the laws that were in place and why those laws were in place, then why are we just talking about the fact that because they were Black, they were disadvantaged? Because that's the very like top, of the surface. And it just leaves them thinking like, oh, maybe at some point in time, there was something wrong with being Black. And it's like, this is not, so I don't, until they can understand the entire, subject matter, why are we bringing it up? Like, why can't they just learn about, Black inventors like Henry Loves Trains? There's Black inventors that were, integral to like the mass transit systems in America. Why are they talking about that? So yes, kudos to what you're doing. I think it's so important, and to be thinking about it in such like a conscious and like thoughtful way for children is really important. I feel like it's just so messed. It doesn't have to be about slavery.
No, not all the time. We are more than slaves, folks.
I know.
We've done some incredible things, and we need to focus more on that. But I didn't mean to digress, but thank you so much for.
No, this is actually, this is how I do. But it's also like, I never thought about it as just like how important it is, the introduction.
I know. I didn't think about that either.
I never
absolutely
thought of that. I was always thinking, oh, that's right. Because, I get into arguments with people all the time about, CRT and in schools. And then I'm like, oh, that's right. But the first book they read so that they do identify as readers shouldn't be from trauma.
Shouldn't be trauma. It should just be like Black superheroes. And, and we do talk about different, like you could talk about skin color, and you can talk about different kind of hairs and what you eat at the dinner table and how you celebrate weddings. But you don't have to talk about, I don't know. It doesn't have to be that deep that early. I think at 4 years old, I think it should just be, Black and greatness.
Because it's about representation at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
So if we're representing characters that are supposed to accurately represent, does it always have to be negative characters or
Right.
not negative characters, but does it have to be focused on trauma? Does it have to
Right.
be focused on, people or characters that has something traumatic happen to them? No, because what does that, teach the child? It's like, oh, something bad's going to eventually happen to me too. You know what I mean? And that's not the kind of way you want to start.
I know. It's like, can we start with the joy first? Can can the black girl magic and black boy joy be the
Right.
first piece before we go like headlong into the other stuff? Yeah.
Exactly.
I also like the fact that it's the rights for children, right? Like I didn't know they had rights. I didn't. I was like, oh, I sound like an old black. You ain't got no rights in this house. What you talking about, rights?
I'm sure we all have heard that.
Right.
It's my house.
What you talking about,
Right? No, and definitely I come from that as well. Absolutely. So when I learned about the UNCRC, I was in Wales. I decided to go abroad. I said, I want to get my master's, but I don't want to get it here. I want to learn something more, have more of a global experience. So I went across because there they actually teach it within the curriculum of the schools. And so children actually learn their rights. They learn all 54, well, predominantly 36 of the articles, but because they really are focused, like, I have the right to do this, and I have the right to play, and I have all these different rights. And they're unique to them because they're a vulnerable group, right? So they're humans, but they're little humans, and they're vulnerable, and they are, they expect protection, or they need protection. They're dependent on the protection of their parents or the adults that are taking care of them. So that's what they are supposed to be, unique rights. But when I discovered that the US is the only country in the world that does not officially recognize this document, has not ratified it, then I was like, okay, this is a problem. We need to make sure that as a nation, we recognize that children have rights in this country. And they have unique rights. So that's when I decided that I would focus on singular rights, or maybe one or two rights, depending on the book. My second book was focused on the Article 13 and 15, which is the right to freedom of expression and freedom to associate with their peers, respectively. And it's, so it's two articles that I felt like that would help to get people to be introduced to the document, since it's something that we don't recognize in this nation.
That's crazy.
So, yeah. So,
Especially now. I mean, and then I saw this article. That's why I put this in. UN committee turns back on climate change petition.
mhm.
On the rights of the child. The global human rights body tasked with protection children rights refused to hear the case of 16 youth from around the world who are threatened by the climate crisis. The youth, represented by a team of human rights and environmental lawyers from Hosfield and Earth Justice, argued that G20 countries, Argentina, Brazil, France, Germany, and Turkey, are violating their rights to life, health, and culture under the Convention on the Rights of the Child by failing to curb greenhouse gas emissions to levels that would limit global warming to 1.5 Celsius, target set by climate science and the Paris Agreement. So when they went, they just turned their backs on them.
Yeah, that was shocking to me, to a point, to be honest. I mean, I'm definitely disheartened that they just simply turned away 16 children who are clearly affected and highly impacted by this crisis. First, acknowledging, yes, we do have a climate emergency and that needs to be acknowledged, but then saying, well, we're not going to be responsible for it. We're not going to, that's all we're going to go. We're just going to acknowledge that it's an issue and you're on your own. So what does that say to me? Honestly, that says that the UN itself as an agency is most likely more performative than it is an actual agency that's willing to be active or proactive in actually fighting for the rights of children or even others. But, when it comes to human rights, but regarding children, it's more performative. It's like, yeah, we recognize your rights. Congratulations, but we're not going to have anything to do with this.
Which is so much nicer than what the Queen of England said. She was basically like, they just talking. That's what she had a hot mic. And she's like, she was like, they're just people just talking, but they ain't doing nothing.
Right. It's like what Greta Thunberg said earlier. I forgot where she was. Pardon me for that. But she was like, blah, blah, blah. You know, they say green plan, blah, blah, blah. She was just basically mocking the world leaders. And she's right. They are not doing anything. They're saying everything, saying the right words, plenty of clickbait, but they're not actually doing anything. And the time is so running out. It's a crisis. Like, we are literally in a crisis. We have maybe 8 years to get these emissions together, or their future, especially because the children are inheriting this, is very bleak. So yeah, it's really disheartening to hear that they did that, but it demonstrates what they are as an organization. And it definitely makes it clear what we as a people have to do in regards to making this more urgent and pushing for action for our children. So
feel like, though, it's like if we've seen nothing or learned nothing in the last year and a half, 2 years, is that like nobody cares about anybody. So, I mean, it's, you know, like on this larger scale, yes, we need these 8 years for the emissions, but it's like people, like, I think what has surprised me most in the last couple of years, like this, you know, during the pandemic, and even seeing, like you said, how climate change is unfolding and all of these things, is like, no one cares unless it like directly, and when I say directly, like directly affects them. And even then it has to like bring them to the brink of like their life falling apart for them to even like make an iota of change. And then the minute they get back to whatever normalcy, it's like, oh, it was, you know, we had some whatever crisis and now we're back. So it's a, you know, I feel like there's so many people that don't care about climate change because it doesn't feel real.
Yep.
And I was reading the article, wondering like, well, would they have taken it more seriously if it was like, you know, adults bringing it to them? But then I thought about it, I was like, no, they don't care, period. Like, because really people are only concerned about what's happening within their own little like swath of time on this earth. And whatever happens by the time I leave, it's like, who cares what you inherit or don't inherit? And it's just, I've really been struggling at like not being like, just so disillusioned with like everybody, like just with humanity in general, because it's been just so disappointing to watch how like the world in like the entire world is moving on all of these things
globally. And the kids are the ones that really, we've got to listen to them. You know, how do you, Salone, how do you speak to Henry? Do you worry for him? I know he's too young to probably talk to about this, but
I definitely worry for him, and I worry about the world and the future because of him. I definitely was a little bit detached before he existed in this world, and it's definitely plugged me in a way that I never thought I could really care so strongly and passionately, almost to the point, especially with like the events of last summer, where at some points I have to intentionally, you know, disconnect and unplug because I can't function if I walk around with the amount of pain and anxiety that is the real what we're actually carrying, which is like the threat of the planet, you know, being permanently damaged if we don't affect change in the next 8 years, or, you know, him growing up in a world where his life is at risk on a daily basis. So sometimes I really just have to kind of, you know, it's because it's painful and it's really scary, and it's almost, you know, it's almost preventative in a way that you can't even like go about the world with if you're really just thinking about all of these things. And, you know, into what Anna was saying, you know, I think one of the reasons too that it's so easy for these organizations not to care is because climate change and white supremacy and colonization are so closely tied together. And people don't often mention that. And so until it really affects rich white men, I really feel like very much like nothing is going to happen. You know, Black people and children and Indigenous peoples especially are the ones most affected by climate change. So, you know, it's really, and then, and children in the future. And so it's like, until we have some serious systemic change, that's what's going to help climate change. Like, I think people think like climate change first, but I feel like it's systemic change first. We get different leaders, different people who are going to go about the process in a different way. And then the pieces will start to correct themselves.
Including the Queen, if she could just look in the mirror when she said that. It's like, look, hey, colonizer.
Right.
Like the colonizer.
Right. The ultimate.
I'm like, look in the damn mirror.
The poster child.
The longest living colonizer.
Right. Oh my God.
I was like, she must be, you know. I don't want to do a dementia joke, but I'm like, did you forget? Like, come on. No.
Yeah, but to what Africa said, I think when you're totally right in regards to people saying that if it doesn't have any direct impact on them, that they're not really willing to like get involved. But I think it also demonstrates how much of burnout that we're actually going through at the moment, with the pandemic lasting for almost 2 years, with the Great Resignation. People are just over their jobs. They realize this sucks. I don't know why I was doing this. And I'm out.
Yeah.
Or they, are getting jobs and they're like, no, I'm not doing these long hours
That's right.
that you expected me to do. And I'm not taking these wages that are absolutely crap. I'm not doing it anymore. We've been through so much and I deserve better. And I think that's where it really is right now. People are so over all of this because we were going through the whole situation with Trump, the pandemic. We were afraid that our democracy was literally, it was all on the brink of, it was on the edge of the cliff. And we were going through so much stress with that. And now that we're still in the pandemic and still going through it, it's just a lot. It's just a ton to take on, and to cope is just difficult to figure out.
You touched on all of our subject areas. I was going to go to Sloan, but I was like, I think I can bring this in through these topics because I was like, oh no, that's another article. Wait. Because this way I just get them out. Let's see. But you're right about the burnout. Well,
yeah.
Let's see. Do I do that? Yeah. Because the burnout, I was like, oh no. Sad at work. Yeah. Because that's one of the articles as well. This advice column attempts to answer a question from a reader about feeling sad and stuck despite having a surface level happy and fulfilling life. I guess this is a question to all of you now. Have you, because both Salone, all of you are entrepreneurs. We're all actually on here entrepreneurs. We're all doing our own business. So I don't know. Have you experienced burned out? Because we've kind of taken control of our own business on this episode, but have you, or at any point do you see what's going on and go, glad I have my own business?
Oh yeah, all the time. For years, I am so glad I have my own business. And when I left politics, pretty much for the last 7 years, I was like, oh, I'm so glad I don't work in DC anymore. I'm consistently relieved, and I think that I've definitely experienced burnout before, but not so much since I've been, in business for myself. I'm definitely exhausted and tired. There's lots and lots of tears and therapy sessions. And, it's definitely an emotional roller coaster, lots of anxiety for sure. But overall, I say good problems. That's usually what I end up landing on because, I feel like what I'm doing is making a difference and I really enjoy it. But when I was working in a different career, I definitely experienced burnout.
Can you tell them again what you do? Just, I know they know, but I could say it, but you could say it so much better than me.
Yes, I have a line of color inclusive nude shoes. My company is all about celebrating the wearer. So we do 6 different colorways of your typical nude pump. And the idea being that it matches the wearer's skin tone so she can put it on with anything because it's matching her and not necessarily her outfit. So it becomes the style staple that you can reach for time and time again.
And her hashtag is nude is not a color, right?
Yeah, because if you were to Google nude right now, you would see the same color nude heel over and over again, and it's for white people. So nude not being a color it's not. At no point does it ever say beige, but the industry has defined it as like this tan that's not thinking about how diverse people's skin tones are.
And then you've also started a new loungewear. Am I right?
Yeah, and Africa's.
Are you wearing it?
Yeah, we're both wearing it. So that has this thoughtful cutout, and the whole idea is just like putting your personal nude on display. So I have shorts.
I'm showing my nudes.
Yeah,
I'm showing my nudes.
She's showing off her nude.
Well, when we take a picture, I got to make sure I get that part right there. Yes. That is, because I was looking, I was like, oh, I got to get the nude outfits. I got to get it. I'm so excited for this new launch. Like now,
Thank you.
and like you've been recognized by, she didn't say it, but she's been recognized by Beyonce and all the high end, like, Vogue. Everyone knows Salone.
And we just launched with Bloomingdale's earlier this year on their website, and we're going to have a store rollout next month in New York, DC, and Atlanta. So in the next couple of weeks, sign up for the email list so you guys can know about it, and you can go and tweet and say hi to the shoes and those stores. Please support. I appreciate it.
Well, they're always advertising to me because if I click on your page and all of a sudden I get these ads for the nude heels, and I'm like, wait, what? Oh, well, I like this ad. You know how do you want to stop saying? No, keep seeing this.
Yeah.
Keep seeing it. But look at how happy she is. And I think, I think a lot of people right now are finding that they need to either work for themselves or do something that really, we've all in the past 2 years have thought about like, is this how I want to live? It's a shame that it took a pandemic to make everyone stop and go, oh, I'm not doing this life right. But and Africa moved to Atlanta, so I'm going to you now, Africa. Are you wanting to come back to New York or?
Honestly, no. I had a very 2020 was extremely tumultuous for numerous reasons. I left New York not planning. Before, pre-pandemic, and in my mind, I was like, I'm going to have my last great New York summer. And I was kind of hitting the wall with the winters. And I was entertaining the idea of Atlanta or LA. But it was still kind of, something I was thinking about, but wasn't concrete. And then when, everything started happening February, March, I was isolating in my apartment in Harlem. My grandmother in Alabama had a heart attack. And I was like, okay, well, I've got to get to Alabama. And at this point, you couldn't test. You couldn't get a test. I got to LaGuardia. It looked like something out of a post-apocalyptic movie. There were 7 people in the airport. This was maybe March 26th. I flew to Alabama, and thankfully my grandmother made it through her surgery. I had to quarantine because, again, I'm trying to get tested. They wouldn't give anyone a test back then because, it was where we were. And at that point, once my grandmother was released from the hospital, my mother and I and one aunt were like the bubble in the house taking care of her. And at this point, went from being what's going on to okay, we're in full blown, it's a pandemic. And it didn't really make sense at that point. I was like, well, I'm paying rent for an apartment that's sitting empty in New York. Do I go back to New York and just sit by myself? Because, New York was at that point the worst, it was dealing with everything the worst, I would say, in the country. And it just didn't make sense. And I just said, well, I was already kind of thinking about moving, and I was happy to be closer to my family, closer, so I decided, talking to friends, they were like, get movers. I was like, well, I'm not in New York. They were like, they'll go move it. I talked to my super, and thank God for technology. I got on FaceTime with movers. They packed up my apartment in Harlem. My stuff was in storage. And then I was in Alabama for a couple of months. We got my grandmother, back to health. She's riding a bike every day now. She's made full recovery. So that was great. But then we were, now we're in a pandemic. And, I'll give you the short version, but, at that point, business and things were great because, unfortunately, we had the civil unrest that was happening. Police were continuing to kill Black people as they do, but now everybody cared. So I have a beauty company, Beauty by Africa Miranda. It was getting on all of these lists and sales were coming in. But then it was also a pandemic, so we had supply chain issues. So I was
that's right.
I was on everybody's website. I had half my inventory. There was no inventory. So it was dealing with all of these things. And then in the midst of this, I got introduced to a potential new partner through someone that I trusted. And, we got in this whirlwind relationship that I thought was going to be all of these things. Turned out the person was extremely emotionally abusive. It was a totally unsafe relationship.
Ooh.
And that turned my year on its head. And, you read about and now everybody talks about narcissists and sociopaths and all of these things. And it sounds it just sounds oh, the things are not that bad. Those people aren't that bad. And what happened to me was that I lost then from, I would say, August to about maybe I got my dog in March. So maybe from August to March, I was in a fog. I had to take my hands off of my business. I had to take my hands really essentially off of everything because like for all intents and purposes, like I can talk about it now, but I tell people like I died and came back to life. Like I was not like what was necessary for the healing. And then we're in a pandemic. So at this point, I'd also moved to Atlanta. So I was then isolated again. And so when we talk about like burnout, I wasn't burnt out, but what happened was that I look back at the person I was like pre beginning of pandemic, pre this like, emotionally abusive relationship. And it's like the things that I wanted to do or the things that interested me or the drive that I had is now gone. And I had like a moment with my therapist a couple of weeks ago. And I was like, what I realized is that I have to now redefine myself because I'm at 44, have always been defined by my drive. I was always driven as a child. I excelled as college, post-college. Like I was the queen of like, I have a project. I can tell you how to do your project. I can give you advice on this. I have 10 ideas in development, 3 things coming. And I was like, all I'm happy doing is like, I work out in the mornings, I play with my dog. And like, I've started unexpectedly acting again. I've been booking projects and like, that's become like my new life. And it's been interesting. But as I talk to a lot of people that have come out of their own traumas during the pandemic, I think, like you said, you're just realizing like, how do I want to live my life? I don't feel like hawking products for brands on Instagram all day. I love my beauty company, but is that where my focus is right now? No, the products are there. They're great. People still buy them. The orders go out. But I had to be honest about like what was most important. If the world is falling apart and your family's dying and could be dying and you feel like you almost died, I was like, I just want to live and be happy and like enjoy the simplicity of life that I have not been able to do because I've been so pushed by projects and, and accomplishments and things. And I'm like in a very new space and only really at a place where I can even talk about it now. But it's like, it's a new space and I wouldn't call it burnt out as much as it was burned down. And now like, and like now figuring out what life looks like now.
That's wonderful. I think everyone can relate to that. And I love that you told the whole of that story because I think a lot of times, when you go to someone who like you look like you have it all together, when I look at your Instagram, it's, and your skin is, by the way, always.
Thank you. Well,
that's that beauty.
The skin stayed the skin, it did go down. But then like once I got vaccinated, my first appointment was a facial. Because priorities.
Yes.
Priorities. So the skin came back.
But it's good to hear all sides of it, in every way. I think because one of my assistants was telling me, when we talk about wellness, right, how it can be triggering for some people. It can be like, maybe they're not in that place, but to hear the evolution of it or the honesty of it is super important. Super important.
Yeah. Because I think there were a lot of messages during the pandemic of like, if you're not using this time and you're not coming out of it and here's the thing, like, I love seeing the success stories and how like Salon has flourished? Absolutely. But I also like talk to people and they feel like because like all they were able to do was like get up and get through the day. I was like, that's also a success. Like we are still in the midst of like extreme trauma. And I think it's like trying, I was like, oh, I'm still trying to function like how I was or how life was. And it's like, life is not whatever was going on before March 2020. Like we are never going back to like that world. And it's like, we have to like look at life and say, like you said, how do we want to run our businesses? How do we want to raise our children? Like, what do we want our place and like the mark that we leave in this world to be? Because it's like you said, it's like shit is serious. Like we had 8 years, police are still killing Black people. These jobs want us to go back and like, no, nobody's going. So it's just
back without health insurance and no minimum wage increase.
Right.
It's like,
and they're saying like, oh, people don't want to go back to work. 700,000 people died. Like they had jobs. Like they worked. There were jobs that they had. Like it's just. I just feel like it's a great reckoning right now. That it's like that. I really hope that my hope is that it makes people kind of like really take stock of like how we're going forward.
Yeah, there's a quote from this article. They say, but if you are finding out that you don't even like the work, well, the great thing is you can start a new business or retrain for a different job or profession. If you can afford it, take a break to try out other things to see if you like them. I think the biggest risk you take is staying in a place that makes you
Yes.
unhappy.
Yes. 100%.
Absolutely.
100%.
So a lot of waiting tables, Anna used to work, right?
Yeah, well, I wasn't the server. I was the host, one of the hosts. That's because I did not like serving and I was bad at it.
I used to serve tables too, and I hosted.
I
I
did both,
like
too.
hosting a little better, but they both suck.
Yeah, they suck. They suck. You still have to deal with customers or, in the case of the comedy club, a guest, and they're interesting.
They are. And, I was always like, she's so sweet. Why are you doing this? But I used to work at Jekyll and Hyde. Oh, God. Theme restaurant, 5 floors of a restaurant,
oh my gosh.
no insurance. You worked on tips. The check they gave you was like a joke. It was like,
Yeah.
I was like, is this, what is this check for? And, they were doing
Right.
shady stuff to
Mhm.
not pay you. And you dealt with just, the public, and the public didn't care that, the setting around you wasn't really helpful to you. And I remember 2 years in, I used to cry. I used to cry when I waited tables. I used to cry while upselling on appetizers. And I would be like, do you want this in a hurricane glass? I was like, what? And the people would be looking at me like, are you? And they didn't care. They'd be like, yeah, I would like that in a hurricane glass.
That's what I would.
And
With
I
the
was
tears,
like,
with the tears.
Yeah.
And then I remember stopping and going, I don't feel healthy.
No.
And I what I want to do, what my career, I want to do stand up. I'm in New York to do this. I remember, my apartment, which you could see behind me, it's, low, it was low rent. And that was the one thing that I will say about myself that was a good choice, was to never have to fight for the, work to pay the rent. The area when I moved here was like questionable, but I was never like, I gotta work every day, because I was like, 3
Right.
days is good enough.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think everyone is, even as I'm in the comedy clubs, I'm looking at the waiters now at different comedy clubs, and I noticed, I don't think a lot of them want to stay. Some of them did not return. I know one waitress that's been around for a very long time, and she did not stay at her job at one of the comedy clubs. And I was like, she just was like, I'm not happy. It's too stressful.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Just the food service industry, period. It's stress. And it's unfortunate that people have to work on tips instead of wages, proper wages.
Okay.
So those are your packages?
That's my packages. And see, low rent means you get a doorbell like that you can't screen, you can't see the person, and the package may not be there. So, whatever.
Also that.
It's not Atlanta. So, but I do think it's just such an important conversation to have right now, because I do, like, even a lot of times, if you're like, you like, certain comics want to complain about the servers talking too loud when they're on stage. I go, not right now, because you don't understand.
They'll walk
Right.
out.
They'll
Right.
walk out.
Yep.
The comedy clubs are having a very difficult time holding on to these positions, because people are realizing, and I saw this on Reddit, if you don't like your job or you're not getting that raise, by the way, moving on to another job could be the raise,
Mhm.
because they're paying more.
That's how you force it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I realized that it's not working the way it used to anymore. Like, people are not okay with it. So they have to up the ante and offer more for people to be like, okay, I think I might work for you. So it's a gamble.
Well, and you're seeing too, it's like they told people for years, no, you can't work remotely. We can't make this accessible. We can't do No, you could have done it all of these years and you didn't. So now that people know that, it's like nobody's going to sit in an office and with
Right.
people that they're horrible. Like, what? Like, no.
So you just look at my face.
So somebody can just like micromanage you for nothing. Like, it's
Exactly.
absolutely not.
Right.
Absolutely.
Have meetings that could have been an email. Like,
Oh my God. No. No.
So companies prioritize mental health during COVID. So why are they still burned out? Between December 2020 and July 2021, employees reported a 21% increase in burnout and 17% increase in physical symptoms of stress, like muscle tension.
10,000 Zooms, people requiring you to have your camera on. Like, it's like this, it's like they couldn't micromanage you enough in the office. So it's like they've got to keep that culture, like, even though it's like remote. No, I'm sure.
I think that there's more meetings now because we are remote. So I do think that like people are over scheduling because they're like, oh, if I don't have to walk down the hallway and like, get up and take, my lunch break can be shorter, or I don't need one because I'm just sitting here in the kitchen, like literally I am right now, and I can just eat and do whatever. So I do think that, our schedules are more scheduled than they were before the pandemic. So I could easily see how stress would carry on. I mean, I definitely have days where I'm like, and no one tells me when I need to take a meeting. I do it when I find time. So I have had days where I'm like, why did I do this to myself? Mm-hmm. Why would I put these 3 meetings like back to back to back? I did not need to do this. And then, your body really is like stressing out because of it.
And even the stress of like, does my background look okay? And people that are like,
no, you see, I didn't care.
Is that a filter? What is that?
Like home isn't even like, they're like not home secure, like their home, they could have any kind of issue. So it's like, it becomes like another status thing. Like, what does people's background look like? And what if, it's like all of these little things. And I'm just like, oh my God, like let people leave their camera off and listen to this nonsense. And like,
or people's backgrounds are too nice. Then they say that that's like a it's bad morale for the rest of the people on the Zoom call. So if someone's like on vacation, they're like, you need to turn your camera off. You can't be on vacation because it's making everyone else sad, which is also a thing that's happening.
I know.
Like there's waves in the background.
Right? Exactly.
I know. I do like your kitchen salon. I'm like, I gotta do better.
But you see the building is right across the street. That's what I look at.
But I obviously have never cared. I was like, you know what? I found something funny about that with the backgrounds. People were doing libraries, like they were reading books, and they ain't reading books. They ain't all reading all those books. I even got a little library. I got a library with books. I was like, oh God, I gotta let people know I'm educated somehow.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was
the curated background.
Exactly. I was like watching some where they had color-coded bookcases. I'm like, are you seriously color-coding your books on your bookshelves? Are you really doing that? Yeah, ridiculous. I was like, I don't believe that. You just kind of bought those books and then just like, they all match.
Right, exactly.
I love this quote. By 2021, many companies now have to turn around and figure out how to be competitive. Oh, well, this is what they're doing. They're trying to figure out how to be competitive, make money, and change their business for a new era of work. So what's happening is, as a result, many employees experience both an increase in work and deprioritization of mental wellness support. So while they said they were going to do that, what's really going on is their bottom line. They're thinking about how to make more money. And when you try to think about how to make more money as a business, you're not thinking about your employees. And I see it happening across the board. So the longer workers experience burnout, the less confidence they have that speaking up to managers will do any good. Dr. Varun Kuduri, I don't know, I cannot say names, sorry. Chief Medical Officer of Talkspace says instead they're more likely to quit to go work for an employee they believe will provide better mental health support. According to Talkspace survey, 41% of employees would rather take a new job in order to resolve stress rather than tap into existing company policies, such as changing teams or taking a short-term leave. So, yeah, these companies better figure it out. It's part of it.
I mean, we've been talking about work-life balance forever before the pandemic. So I feel like there's no excuse for them to not actually have considered this strongly, or, just make it clear that this is definitely one of those times where work-life balance is extremely important. It's very significant because, I don't know. I don't know what would make it more obvious, but if this doesn't, I don't know what's gonna make it change. But again, like you said, it's the bottom line. That's all they're considering at the end of the day.
Truck drivers, they're like, Bye. See ya.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
can't move my goods from like my, the airport to my warehouse. It takes things that used to take a couple days, tops, a couple days, weeks, because there aren't enough truck drivers or the truck drivers that are working are overscheduled. So I just can't even get things. So even like once you get like, yes, supply chains are slow and that slows things down. But you would think, okay, once it's domestic, everything should run smoothly, and it doesn't. Not even close to the case.
What would you recommend to people for the holidays? Now they're saying like, because I know I bought my niece a gift on Etsy, and it was in September, and it has not.
Right. I bought some. My son has a uniform this year because he just entered kindergarten, and I bought a uniform for him from a website at the end of August, and it still hasn't arrived. It was like the last week of August, like August 22nd, and it still has not arrived yet.
Wow.
Yeah, things are, and they're like, yeah, well, the people, it like requires embroidery. So like it's here, but we don't have an embroidery staff. Like we're trying to, be cognizant of them, and they have their backed up. So like they can only work so hard. It's like, it's a person who does it, So yeah, and that kind of also gives me like a sense of peace and like how my business moves along. Cause it's easy to be tough on yourself and like want to be like, wow, I'm not doing this properly. But if it's happening to the biggest of businesses, like who am I to think that like I can make things happen quicker?
Yeah. I think I'm just going to tell family and friends they're getting cards this year. They're not getting anything because it's just not, they're going to get it like in June of next year. I might as well just give you something you'll get a little sooner.
Our Johnson family tradition is that we actually grew up celebrating or giving gifts after Christmas anyway, because everything was on sale, and my parents were very like fiscally minded. So like literally the weekend after Christmas, we would go to like an outlet mall, and my parents would give us like some money. Like it would change depending on the year, and they're like, "This is your budget, and you can spend it on whatever you want." But things were cheaper, so you would get more. And we could pick out our own gifts.
That's a great idea.
That was like our tradition for like years, like basically like middle school on through high school.
Oh, like perfect.
I love that. I might pick up that tradition.
Yeah, I mean, because it's really hard to get. I mean, I ordered I was supposed to be I'm going to Chicago this week for my niece's birthday. Munchie, she's just so adorable. She's so cute, and she's a moody little child. She's got like personality. Like I don't know where she's been here before, but even my sister said one time when she asked her for help, she goes, "Oh, do you need my help now?" Because she seems like she's been here before and she's got it all. She seems like she's done it all, and she's 3. But she's like, I got this, But she wanted me to be I'm on FaceTime. I'm always like doing the cow face, so she'll talk to me. So it's supposed to be cow for Halloween, for her birthday. But they can't deliver it.
Yeah. So, I don't know if my son's costume's going to arrive on time either.
They can't deliver it on time, so I have to go into a store. I did notice like the shelves are starting to look kind of bare too. And people need to start paying attention. It's interesting because I always watch the news, so I always hear the story. And they said this is going to last until, 2022, Christmas of 2022.
Sure.
Yeah,
I believe it.
So it's in all areas of where people are just, it's not happening. I do have this article in here for you, Africa, about essential oils, because I know you do. I know it's a growing sentiment, and I'm curious about this. Because I use essential oils, a growing sentiment of distrust towards unregulated clean beauty has found an outlet in essential oils. And dermatologists have long argued that essential oils are risky for the skin, but customers are starting to catch on in the wake of unexpected and sometimes painful skin reactions. Is that true?
Yes. Well, first of all, people, I love TikTok. I love Instagram. I love all of that. But like that, stop putting stuff on your face that you see people do on the internet. And it's like essential oils, like a lot of people don't understand, like they're great and they have a lot of great properties, but a lot of times you need a carrier oil. Like, yeah, tea tree oil is fantastic, but you put it directly on your face, you're going to burn your skin off. Like oil of oregano is amazing, but you might want to mix it with some coconut oil or jojoba, again, before you burn your skin off. And most people aren't going to do, that kind of research. So a lot of times when people are like, well, I only use products that are clean, that don't have any chemicals. I'm like, well, first, everything's a chemical. And two, that's probably why your skin still doesn't look great. Give me the acids. It's like everybody's like clean beauty, clean. I'm like, your skin does not look amazing. Like I say this as somebody who is very like, I put a lot of time and money into my skin. I do peels, we're gonna do acids, we're gonna do all of the things. And it's just and I even with my own products, it's like yes, my product, my facial elixir has a chemical in it so that it has like, it can last and it can actually work and do the things that it says it can do. And you buy it and it doesn't like disintegrate in 3 weeks. Like it's just, again, marketing is great, but people take stuff and run with it without actually doing research. It's like, I'm not a scientist, but I do research. And it's like, we just watch things and we follow it. And then people's faces are all like, have all these now causing all these issues and damaging their skin because they want to be natural, like so natural. So it's like, yes, essential oils are great. I use my peppermint oil like to help me sleep and different things. But like when you start talking about your face and your scalp and those things, you need to do your research because you like these products that are just kind of like thrown together. And I hate to say like in someone's kitchen, like usually there's something missing and there's a reason why like they only last a couple of months. There's a reason why, they're not tested as frequently or to the same degree as other products. And then you have these issues. So
you worked with a Black chemist, right? For your line?
Yes. So that was the other thing. Like I had an idea about a product. And even for like, and I know people who started making products in their kitchen, but when it was time to like start scaling and actually like take it to market, they needed to work with a chemist because it's like, again, it's like, it's math and science. Like you need someone, this is, it's more than just like a little shea butter here, a little drop of this there. And you do that 50 times and is it all going to be the same? Like, how do you know it's going to work? So no, I made a point to research and work with a chemist. Her name is Erica Douglas, AKA Sister Scientist. Her company is MC. They're out of Chicago and my products, manufactured in the US, but it's great for, again, if you have an idea or if you've already been making products on your own, there's nothing wrong with partnering with a scientist or getting that extra layer of research to make sure that your products are safe. Because the worst thing you want is that you have something that's, it's so great. And then people do buy it, say it does go viral. And then you got like 1,000 people then now making a new TikTok saying you burnt their face off. So then how's your business?
Now, I just started doing facials, Africa. I didn't really do them before, and I should have done them after I've had you on several times.
I was like, all this time.
I know, but it's so funny. So I had a friend who just, because I'm my trust with people who do facials is, I don't know, it's weird, I guess. But I'm also learning a lot through this pandemic. You've got to like do your research, like you were saying. And I will say this. She did the one where it's like where it's shaving your face, kind of.
Oh yes,
what is that called?
Dermaplaning. I had that last month. It's fantastic.
So that is good. That's okay to do. That's all right. Yeah.
The planes are good. The peels are good. I had the chemical peel, the perfect peel back into April, and it's like literally where like the top layer, you look like a monster because like over the course of 7 days, like the top layer of your skin like peels off, but it's like then it's like 13-year-old skin underneath, so it's fantastic.
I've never done it.
Do it. It's
the first time I did. Well, the first time I did it, I'd never seen my skin look like that.
That's the point. Like, yes, black doesn't crack. We are going to age better than most. But that is the secret sauce. When you talk to like Black women that look like even better than like the average aging Black woman, she probably, not even probably, like she's been getting like consistent like skincare, like treatments and like has a really good regimen. My friend's mom told me, and she was to this day is the best looking Black woman I've ever seen in real life. And she told all of us when we were in our 20s, she was like, wear sunblock every single day. And that was the first life-changing thing. And then from there it was retinol. I'm like, retinol was the next gift that keeps on giving. And then facials. And I'm getting fillers for the first time. I'm in December, so I'm excited.
Oh, wow. So let me ask you this.
Yes.
About the mask dilemma with acne.
Oh my God, yes. Yes.
Like, and when you were talking about tea tree oil, like someone told me to put tea tree on the mask, but that's, again, too harsh for the face.
Yes, and then your eye, like that's too much. Like when we first, like I would say back in like the top of this year, my skin was like, I looked in the mirror and I was like, I don't recognize myself. And it was definitely the breakouts. But what I realized was I was doing cloth masks and I was trying to do like fashion masks and I wasn't like washing the mask. Just was doing all these things. And it's like, no, I now do the K95 disposables. I wash you have to wash your face every day. like stick to your regimen every day. If you're wearing makeup and you're wearing a mask, like I stopped really wearing makeup a lot because I was like, why am I wearing makeup and then wearing a mask and then cooking my face and then wondering why I'm breaking? And it's just, I had to let some things go. And that, again, you're holding on to what was life before. What is life now? Life now, we wear masks. So you'll get some mascara and a little eyeliner, a little bit of concealer, maybe.
That's right.
But I just had to kind of let it go. And my skin has been better for it. And my friends that are still dealing with a lot of skin issues are still wearing full faces of makeup under their mask every day, or wearing cloth masks that they don't really clean frequently. And I'm like, it's just like sleeping on a dirty pillowcase, except it's like laying on your face.
Yeah.
That's right. You know, it's so funny because I used to wear the masks that were close. Now I wear that cone one.
Mm-hmm.
Can you guys hear that drilling in the background? I was just curious.
A little bit.
Oh, I hate that restaurant down there. I'm going to get them if it's the last thing I do. You're done. You have no idea. But yeah, the cone mask, like the one, because it was not close, because you're right. And then and those I just throw out, you know. Yeah. And you're right. I stopped doing the makeup because I was like, it's rubbing against my skin and it's creating these pimples around. And then every makeup artist would tell me, oh, you have one. But when I stopped doing the cloth one that's too close to the face, my makeup artist was like, how do you not have acne around? I go, I changed the masks.
There you go.
But it's like, it's our new normal. It's just all about figuring it out. And it's not easy. And so that's why I also asked that, because it's you know, just trying to moisturizing. I never even thought about slapping on a layer. It's like,
oh my goodness. Gotta moisturize.
Yeah. That's key.
Yeah, the hydration. I was like, I thought I just, you know, I aged well and I'm good. But you're right. It is key. The first time a makeup artist told me, she said, oh, your skin is actually hydrated. I was like, oh.
That's like the best compliment. When a makeup artist tells you your skin is like hydrated, you're like, okay, I'm doing something right.
How much water should you drink? You know, they were doing that. Oh, as Anna's drinking water. Look at that timing. They were doing the drinking water, I think, challenge. But I was like, I don't know about this.
People have died from that before that challenge. Someone drank too much water and it was like for a radio competition and they died from like, what is it? Like hypo something when you
hydro poisoning.
Yeah. And so it stopped like it changed radio competitions across America, but then also like you can drink too much water. I was watching the news a couple of weeks ago and there was this woman, I forget what her credits were, but she was telling people that they actually don't need to drink as much water as people are saying they're supposed to. She's like, people walk around with like the gallon of water a day or whatever. And she's like, you don't have to, just drink when you're thirsty. But at the same time, I was looking at her and I'm like, I don't know if I want to take advice. Like she didn't look like, she wasn't like glowing. Right. So I don't know. Yeah. It's a good question.
And I say by the time you're thirsty, you're already like a little dehydrated.
It's too late.
So I was trying to do that whole gallon thing and I realized like I bought the jar and I was like, it was like a day and a half. And I was like, this is another project I'm giving myself. And I just try to make a point of like to just consistently drink during the day. But to be honest, I don't track it. Like, did I drink 8 glasses, 10, this many ounces? I used to try to do it. But again, it was like, I was like, I'm giving myself more stress. Just drink, like make a point to drink water.
Yes.
Yeah.
I just got back from Denver and my lips are so dry from the altitude. I feel like it really affected my skin. It's weird. And I was only there for like a short period of time.
It will though.
So what do you do for that? Look at me. I'm trying
to drink water.
Oh, the water. Yeah, the water. And then Fresh has this. Is it Fresh? I think it's Fresh. Has this really great lip thing that I've started using because I smoke a lot of weed. So right here, I get this like you can see it. I get this black thing right here.
Yeah.
From smoking weed. True story. I had a guy like after sex actually say to me while he's laying next to me in bed, while you're smoking your weed, you should probably put a little moisturizer in there. Now, I don't know if that's where you want to get your like advice or how. I mean, for me, it was like, oh my God, I didn't even know that anyone noticed. But I was like,
So,
Okay.
Marita, I'm going to send you a facial elixir. In addition to being a great, just great overall for your skin, it's a good lip treatment. Like I put it on my lips at night. So I will send them.
Thank you.
Because we don't want anyone ever saying that to you. Ever.
I put a little
again.
vitamin E oil there too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because you
Okay.
and especially at night is the time that we undo we repair the damage that we do to our bodies, period. Like from, head to toe, but especially your face.
All right. So I'll keep that. Now, vitamin E essential oil on the face, is it too harsh to just put that on your face?
That's like the good old school. I remember my mom used to get the little the vitamin E tablets and stick the pin in them and do things. So no, because to me, I've used vitamin E for years and have never had. But again, I also still tell people, just because it's worked for everybody, test it out. Do a little patch test on your wrist or somewhere before you slather something on your entire face for the first time.
Nice. Now this, thank you so much. This is such a great, helpful conversation. Now, as we're talking about fashion, I do have in here the article that actually points out, the glamour of Salon Monet. Black-owned clothing brands, diversity and inclusion are growing focal point in fashion industry. Despite influencing fashion for years, designers of Black-owned clothing brands have long been overlooked in the space, but are finally getting more of the recognition they deserve. Supporting these designers, according to Glamour writer Andrea Navarro, acts as both fashion and political statements by pushing the culture through style and activism. Some of the highlighted brands, these brands range the industry from streetwear and leisure to swimwear and lingerie, luxury, casual, formal, and shoe wear like Salon, who's featured here. So tell us about this. This is great.
Yeah, I mean, it's not unlike what Africa was saying, last summer, that as the silver lining or the great awakening, however you want to put it, where I guess the broader culture was identifying the injustices that were happening against the Black community on a day-to-day basis, everyone started to kind of pass around these lists of shopping Black. What does it mean? How does it affect change? And realizing that this is a very important thing, and it's a way that we can, make put Black Lives Matter at the forefront of our day. And everyone's going online shopping now. It makes it kind of easy to do it. So yeah, a lot of these lists started getting circulated. So that's why when you first mentioned it, I was like, which one is this? Because there's a few. I think that they're kind of, recycling each other, but it's very, very important. And it is true. I have realized that the industry is definitely trying to change, and they definitely are taking steps in that direction. I'm not going to give anybody a timeline, long as we're kind of marching in the right direction. And I feel like that's absolutely what a lot of the major brands are doing, a lot of the publications are doing, a lot of stylists are doing, influencers and stars alike. So I think for the most part, everything is really heading in a direction that's positive. There's still obviously so much that can be changed, but things are definitely good and doors are opening. So I think we have to push through.
We got to get on John Laster. John Laster, comedian, has this app. It's called BLAP, which is for Black-owned products, so that you know where to go, where to shop.
Oh, okay. I'll check it out. I hadn't heard of that one.
Yeah, nice app that'll let you know where to get, because it's one thing to have to, but you got to kind of keep drilling to people what is actually Black-owned.
Yes. That's why the lists consistently coming out are important, because it's easy for people to forget and read it one time. And then now it's Christmas shopping and you're back to kind of the old ways. So it has to be, we got to keep talking about it until it's just second nature, or, all the stores are actually just having the Black-owned products right next to, the other products. So
it's so important. It's funny because I talked to a young lady who does the Kwanzaa crawl. Oh, Carrie Coddett. Actually, I could just say young lady. Young comedian who does the Kwanzaa crawl throughout New York City to support Black-owned businesses, Black-owned bars, and I had to tell her of one business that she was about to contact. I was like, it looks like it's Black-owned, but if you go down the chain, you'll find out it is not. And that is what's happening right now. Is you gotta really do your
especially
work.
with these digital like dropship companies, because I started getting ads for one and it said Black owned, Black owned. And I looked at the messaging because I want to, especially, being an entrepreneur myself, I want to know who else is out here doing it. Like I always like to, be aware of other Black and female operated businesses. And so I was looking for the story and there was no story online. So I sent them an email, no email response, and an Instagram message. And I was like, So I started looking even more into it. And there's a similar company. It was for a detangling brush. And there is a Black owned detangling brush, and they have like the real branding that says like this is a Black owned company with the woman's face and her, her story. But the company I was getting ads for, it was a dropship company. And so they had just bought all this product from, either it's in China or they have basically a storage unit. They wait for a bunch of orders to come through and then they ship it all out. And it's anonymous essentially. And so maybe it was a Black owned person, but I find it hard to believe because there was no photo that was associated with it. It was literally just a line on like the Instagram page and in the ads. And so I don't know, like definitely, do your research and be suspicious, because I definitely think that could have been a front quite easily, especially for them to not respond to my emails or Instagram messages and not to have a photo. Like, you could put a photo of, like how difficult is that? Yeah. You claim me Black owned, like who is it?
Right.
Yeah. Do your research. It's so important. Also, has fashion bid the binary goodbye? The emerging trend of spring 2022 fashion shows was not any particular silhouette or color, but that many designers put both women and men on the runway in what once would have been called women's wear, not as an act to shock, but simply as a matter of fact. The New York Times fashion critics discussed this, raising question like, is this natural end of the progression starting in the 1920s by Gabrielle Chanel? After all, if we now accept women in pants without blinking, which I think everyone does, except maybe certain religious groups, should not men in dresses and skirts be accorded the same reception? And if we are still freaked out by men in dresses and skirts, as arguably most people outside of this tiny fashion sector are, is that perhaps because we are still clinging to old power structures? Is it seen as somehow disempowering for men to have access to classically female clothes? Does it somehow weaken them, since women are supposedly the weaker sex? That is in quotations. And fashion may be ahead of the curve on this one. But I think, it's interesting because as we talk about fashion and where it's going, we've always had, like kilts.
Yes,
and
absolutely. I kind of almost disagree with this article in the sense that they're saying that skirts is classically women, when that's not true. Most indigenous cultures have men, and it's a sign of power and leadership. Mm-hmm. And I think that if you wear a skirt, it's probably more telling of where you live in the world and when you lived in the world than your gender. Mm-hmm. So I do think that like categories are important because that's how we identify the world and that's how we make sense of it. So I think that, there probably shouldn't be one giant section in the department store. Like, so maybe skirts can be here and that there can be skirts across all sizes and pants are over here. That's great. Mm-hmm. But I think that like as far as gender and clothing don't have to go hand in hand, but we do have to be able to kind of like identify it. I don't know if like, like you wouldn't go to a spring summer show and expect to see like, Montclair, puffer jackets. Yeah. So like this is spring, summer, this is supposed to be short sleeve. So like while categorization is important, I don't know if gender is as important because as we know, like what you wear what you wear being as speaking towards your gender is actually a more recent occurrence, I would say.
Oh, okay. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's, I don't know. I definitely saw it as a trend as well, but I think it's great. I don't know. I feel like it shouldn't necessarily be defined by that. Fashion shouldn't necessarily be defined by gender. I mean, I think the same thing. I don't know if I've mentioned it on here before, but when I first, was shopping for my son, I was trying to decide exactly like how boyish we were going to go,
Mm-hmm.
you know, because understanding that like these boy being blue and girl being pink is very arbitrary and was a marketing tactic designed to sell more clothes and had nothing to do with gender. And it wasn't in America before 1920, boys and girls wore the same thing. So it was more of a coming to age thing where, you know, you had to, if you're outside playing, you would wear, you know, shorts or pants. And if you were, you know, going to a formal event, most kids like young before they were walking were wearing dresses, like a white long dress. So I was always like very much kind of like on the fence to get go with how we, I guess, you know, how gender was associated with fashion. I think that's just, you know, it's definitely, I think, something more new. And I really feel like it has more to do with marketing, even now with clothes that we, you know, with adult clothes, not just children's clothes.
Yes. Anna, you were about to say something?
No, I was just, kind of piggybacking on what someone was saying about like how marketing has influenced how fashion has determined or dominated in regards to what is considered what gender. I would just say, yes, it's definitely a part of Western society and its patriarchal stance. And I feel like with fashion in general, it's always been fluid. There's been a time when in high society in Western, you know, in European societies where men wore tights and wore
high heels.
wigs and heels. Exactly.
Heels were made for men. Yeah. And the first heels were made for like kings who were like basically trying to look more powerful.
Exactly. So it's always fluid. It's always changing. And I'm glad to see that it's changing towards, you know, something where it allows, you know, men to wear something that so-called women were designed to wear, which is just, it's ridiculous, really. I don't even know why that argument is being had, but it is. And I'm glad that it's changing recently. So yeah, I think it's great. It's a great sign.
It's so interesting because I have like, I would say kind of, I don't want to call it trauma, but I definitely remember being yelled at for always wearing jeans to go out to dinner with my dad. My sister would run down always in the right outfit and I never did. I mean, I've always been awful with clothes though. But my dad was like, we're going out to eat. What are you doing? Put on a dress. And I was like, I don't feel comfortable in a dress. Now, I know some people do feel more comfortable. And I've had men say to me, I wish I could wear a dress. I would just, the summertime, it's so much easier. And I'm like, I personally have never really, people fought to get me in dresses. And I've always had that, Marina, you look good. You got nice legs. I don't understand. I'm like, I just feel more comfortable, especially as a comedian on stage. I was like, I've always just felt comfortable in pants. That's just always been me. And this conversation now feels like, oh, this is where I was like years ago when people would yell at me about not wearing a dress, stockings. And I don't know, maybe even when there's a picture of me when I was really like.
Stockings are the worst.
Absolute worst.
And a slip. Oh, God.
A slip. Oh, my gosh.
Who came up with these things? Why do we need them?
You don't have no slip on.
Like it was the most inappropriate
You
thing.
weren't fully dressed without a slip.
Oh, my God. Meanwhile, it's like Alabama and 100 degrees outside.
Right. Exactly. That part.
Oh, my
The
child.
corset. The corset that used to tuck women's body organs in.
Well, that's it. That people are back with the
I'm
corset.
about to say they're back with that now.
Those are back. They
That's
don't
what
look
the
the same.
Spanx are, right?
The Spanx and there's the people work out in them and people wear them.
Yeah,
it's Spanx, but there's other brands too, and it's for working out and every day. People wear corsets.
So it's like I always say just do you.
Yeah.
This Vivienne Westwood remark about the real and the point of all of this dressing up is for people to get naked. That's what
I saw that. I thought that was funny. I guess she's like kind of going back to, I guess, like peacocking almost, that the reason we dress is to attract the other sex or the sex of your choosing. Yeah. But I don't know if I feel like that's pretty antiquated too.
Yes,
you get dressed to feel good. Like that's why I get dressed, because I want to feel confident and feel good. And I want to put together an outfit that's like maybe challenging in some ways. Like, oh, these things don't necessarily seem like they should go together. How can I make them go together?
I like that.
Yeah. So I don't, like, I think that maybe I feel like that's very like when maybe you first start dressing, you know, as a woman going to like a high school and you're like, oh God, how is this going to be interpreted by, you know, my peers? Is this going to cause me to get the wrong kind of attention? Is it going to be the good kind of attention? Am I going to be, you know, teased? So like in that way, like, I guess I could see what she was coming from, but I feel like I would hope that most people are evolving past it, where you wear things that make you feel comfortable and good.
Well, look, this summer.
Yeah. Yeah. This summer I was
The dog
wearing like,
agrees.
yeah, I was wearing like basically muumuus this summer, like big, like baggy dresses with like sneakers is what I would travel with.
But if you were in New York, in Manhattan, and you saw these girls wearing, it was a full article about where are the clothes? Because they were wearing nothing. And I thought I was older because I felt like an old aunt. I actually said it to this girl on stage. I never thought this would come out of my mouth. I said, girl, where's your clothes? What are you doing? And I felt like I was about to get canceled because I was objectifying and everything.
Oh,
but I
my
was like,
God.
I can't help it. I'm like, ain't no mystery. I mean, there was no mystery. I would look at.
I think the pendulum has to swing. That they're like, we've gone all the way to like, you know, basically public nudist colony. I think we're going to kind of come back a little bit.
It got just a little warm right after the pandemic, like into the summer, the beginning of the summer. It was still freezing outside, and I saw these girls were naked. I was like, okay, we have been locked in and people want to get laid.
Yes. That's
Okay. And I was like, I said, I guess this is what's going on. And I said, is it me? Every time my friend would drive me down to the cell, I said, look at her. She ain't got no clothes on. Is that cute? You know, but hey, do you, whatever you feel comfortable in. But you're right. It was like the point. I mean, I'm telling you, they were getting naked. So I don't know.
Well, they didn't call it a hot vac summer for nothing.
Right.
That's right.
Exactly.
That's right. I
Correct.
mean, the emperor's new clothes ain't none.
None. Oh my God. But I feel like we had two extremes happening this summer because on the other side, I just kind of was like, okay, let me go buy clothes. And then everything looked like these like handmade tail, like prairie dresses. So there was like,
yeah, that's what I was saying. That's what I was wearing this summer.
oh, that's what you
It was like, they were like muumuus, like prairie dresses, however you want to call it. I don't usually do the pastels a lot, but
I wasn't ready to get naked, but I wasn't quite ready for that either.
I was all for it, especially because, you know, like, you know, the COVID body is real. So I was like, oh, this is perfect. This is exactly what I'm putting on.
No, I just feel like I became like a suburban, like athleisure mom. Like I got into, like I finally like joined I got like a box of Lululemon stuff as a gift. And now I've become like a pod person because I'm like, it's so amazing. It's so wonderful.
You're like Uggs and the leggings.
No, I literally have become like the person with like the dog and like like a cropped hoodie and like a cropped hoodie and like leggings and like a dog and white sneakers. I was like, oh God,
That's why your leisure wear is also very perfect timing. My God.
yes.
I love wearing like leisure. I'm definitely gonna get something Salone because that's all I look at now is pajamas or like, you know, leisure wear, something I can feel comfortable at home.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You know, and look good still in it, you know.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've definitely upped my pajama game and lounge game
Yes.
during the pandemic. It's like I'm sitting at home and I need to like feel comfortable. You know, let me get
Absolutely.
Yeah.
some nice fabrics, some soft fabrics to wrap myself in. You know, so yeah,
It's
great.
important on the skin. I never realized how important like clothes, the way the clothes feel on your skin is. It's so important too. To how you feel. It's funny because I was telling someone, they were like, what do you work out in? And I was like, I've gotten so much better. I go, but in the past, one of the comedians, Russ Maneve, I don't know if you ever met Russ Maneve, Salone, but he saw me working out and he still to this day laughs because he saw me years ago and I used to literally just grab a pair of ripped shorts. Not even like shorts, the ones that come to your knee. And they were like, there was like a hole in the crotch. I look like Huckleberry Finn running around Central Park's reservoir. And
Oh my god!
he was like, Marina. And I was like, what? I don't really care. I'm just doing this for me. but I didn't know I was going to see you. And to this day, he still is like, I just was like, what are you? Are you running? Are you homeless? Like, which one is it?
You could be both.
Right?
Could be both. Oh.
So anyway, what else here? We have this article, this too, that's brought on by my new assistant. She's talking about the door by door, a push to rename Confederate streets for George Floyd and Breonna Taylor. At least 40 streets in Northern Virginia are named after Confederate soldiers and the like. And after last summer's demonstrations for racial justice, Alexandria officials lowered the bar to change these names. And if a petition is signed by 25% of property owners along a given street, the question of changing said street's name will be raised before the city lawmakers. Alex Sprague, a local activist, has made it his personal mission to knock on door after door to sign these petitions and eventually rename the streets after the likes of Elijah E. Cummings and Breonna Taylor. I think that is so important to say Breonna Taylor, to say her name over and over again. We cannot forget her. I would say one of the comedians that I love, he's being talked about a lot right now. I'll say it. Damn it, I'll say it. Chappelle. I would say the one argument I have, I don't say much about comics, but the one thing and Gina Yashere put this out on her Instagram and I loved her for it, is the one thing I wish he would say. Yeah, that's right. The dog knows. I wish he would just say Breonna Taylor's name when he brings up Black women, because he has done it. He had a chance on Saturday Night Live to even mention Kamala Harris, and he did not take that opportunity to even recognize her name. And I don't, I'm not him. I'm not, but I in moments that it's so crucial. And I saw your video, Salone, where you're crying. You're crying about seeing Kamala Harris it's such a powerful video on your Instagram where you take us through that moment, because that's why.
So I think I told you guys before, sometimes I check out of politics, and that election I voted, and I was like, me just in the day-to-day minutia and the day-to-day like ups and downs of this campaign is stressing me out, and I don't have any control over the situation. So there's no reason for me to be bringing that stress into my body and thus into my home and the stress for the people that I love. So I had essentially checked out of the election, and I wasn't, feeling particularly inspired by too many of the candidates. No one to me was saying anything that I really felt like was going to actually be carried through into should they actually be elected. I was kind of disillusioned in a lot of ways. And so I was, doing work on the couch and was watching the ceremony happen. And I did not realize, I guess, the stress and the fact that I, as a Black woman, had never seen another Black woman walk out into a room or into, whatever the event is, and been immediately given that sort of formal sign of respect. It was the saluting, and I feel like I'm going to get emotional thinking about it again. It was like the saluting from, the military that were, guarding the Capitol at the time, when she walked out and they immediately saluted her as, vice president. That I broke down. I wept, and I did not see it coming. I didn't even know it was something that I was feeling inside until I saw it. And it was just like the fact that I go through my day to day, and I always am constantly having to kind of prove to myself, to other people, my worth. And I have to prove that I'm, worthy of respect. And I mean, even I think I've heard you talk about it, Marina, with, flying and going on planes. And it doesn't, until they see that you have a first class ticket, they're going to treat you like you don't deserve a first class ticket and that you're not supposed to be in first class. And so it's like the assumption is that you don't get anything until you prove your value. So here we are in America, and all these years, all these white men have told us that these are the most important positions, and that these people are deserving of value. So the fact that finally it's a Black woman getting it, give her her all of her kudos. I don't care, what her politics are. I mean, even speaking of politics with, rest in peace to Colin Powell today. It doesn't matter where they fall on like the political spectrum. It's the fact that these are the positions that you told us are important. So make these people important. And so I like seeing us be made important. Like erect the statues, name the preschools and the public school systems, and salute them where they go. And you protect them like you've protected all of these other men that have come before her. And you tell her that she's special and important.
It's important.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, you're right. It's like the importance of saying their names, knowing who they are, and what because you're right. Like even with Kamala, like how many times do we as Black women get to see us being saluted, respected, honored? I mean, I think I saw something recently about Whitney Houston where someone was like, so glad that they posted something about her music and not just about her drug abuse, It's
and it's like how many Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is full of white male drug users, addicts, absolute addicts. But you don't ever hear about them they're never prefaced with the addict so and so. That's never mentioned.
Yeah, and so I guess that's why in those moments, even with Dave Chappelle, where he's sort of the person, because people do look at comics to be the voice of reason. Why? I don't know.
It should be a safe space. It should be a safe space.
I know these comics. I know these comics. Please don't look to all of them. Please don't. Now, Roy, we could say yes. Roy is definitely one of the good ones, but do not do it. Not all of them have chosen to be the voice. So, but yeah, it's just these critical moments in time when everybody is listening. That's when I get disappointed that they don't say her name. Please say her name. Please lift these Black women up, and Black men at the same time. And I think this is a good place. Actually, you know what, you guys, it's so easy talking to you. I could sometimes I have to stretch past an hour and a half because I'm like, I didn't get the goods. But I got the goods with you ladies. So thank you for joining me today. It's just always a pleasure having all of you on. It really is. So I thank you so much. Salone, tell our listeners where they can find you.
Yes. So you can buy my loungewear or shoes on SaloneMonet.com. If you're interested in the shoes, there will be a restock coming very soon, and also on Bloomingdale's.com. And soon in Bloomingdale's in store. So also be looking out for that as well. And with Friends Like Us, we will never stop saying her name, Breonna Taylor.
Yes. Thank you. Africa?
Okay, if you want to say hey, hit me on Twitter at Africa Miranda. If you want to see some pictures and nice video of what's happening in my life from time to time, you can do that on Instagram. If you want to get your lovely skin glowing, please visit beautybyafricamiranda.com. And with Friends Like Us, you can always show your nudes and not be judged.
Oh, I got to get the picture. Oh, wait, let me take that picture again. Do that again.
Wait, let me get mine.
I wish I had one.
I'll send you one.
And thank you, Anna.
Yes.
Or Anna.
Oh no. Yes, I'm Anna Gilchrist. I'm a children's author that is pushing for diversity of children's books, as well as an advocate for children's rights. You can find me at www.annagilchrist.com. Please sign up to my newsletter where I can give you lots of updates on things that are happening with children's rights, as well as new books coming up and events that will be happening as well. And if with Friends Like Us, we can make a better world for our children as we continue with the way things are going on right now.
Yes. I'm so glad I kind of hooked you and Salone up, because I feel like there's going to be a connection there.
I'm definitely, for sure. I'm definitely be looking for the books for sure.
Absolutely. And Marina Franklin here. I'm just so happy to have just this wonderful group today. Every time I do the podcast on a Monday, it feeds me. It really does, because I have just wonderful, wonderful friends. So go to my website, marinafranklin.com, for all things Marina. And also our merch is available with the logo on it. So just purchase that at marinafranklin.com. And with friends like us, yes, I have just wonderful, wonderful friends. I know that was an easy out, but it's true. It's true. Check us out.